Well, how are you today?
I am fantastic. Austin has been nothing but lovely, even if it's icy outside. It's quite magical with all of the trees and the branches. It's good stuff.
So one thing that you said that I think is really interesting that most marketers don't look at or even talk about, I know Miguel, who's behind the camera, talks about a lot, is the importance of organic social
Yes.
and how I really like that strategy that you have in terms of making organic social work in order to make paid ads work.
Yeah.
So about that, why talk about your experience with making organic work and how that supports paid.
Yeah. I think there's really three parts about it that make the biggest part. Number one, paid ads
Mhm.
in any social media environment is just paying to get attention. All you ever do when you spend money on ads is you're buying attention. So we also know that the better we meet Facebook's business objective or TikTok or YouTube or whatever of retaining that attention and making that experience useful means that we get to reach more people for a lower price and we get to reach them earlier in their scroll. You know, the third thing you see on Instagram is way cheaper to show somebody than to add 15 minutes into a doom scroll. So if the piece of content works organically and earns reach and engagement, it's extremely corollary to the projections we can have on that as a paid piece of content, giving us a good alignment with Facebook's business objectives and giving us a lower cost. So, using organic social as a way of proving words and creative to see what works and what doesn't is an incredibly cost efficient way of making sure that all of your ads crush, or at least going out there with the best chance you can to see like if it'll work. So that's the first thing that I use, is why I love it. The second thing is understanding the brand positioning and consumer psychology of what people respond to. Like you might get a lot of views, but what inspires conversation? You know, like what do people respond to? Like what are the pain points, features, benefits, etc. that really get folks interested in what you have to say? What like use cases or when people buy products, they're not trying to solve a thing. They're more trying to spend money to achieve some aspirational piece, right? I mean, Robert talked about the book today with the jobs and all of that stuff, which I can't remember the name of. So, oh well.
Me neither.
The point of it is, we spend money to solve problems and ultimately to have a better life. So, how do we represent not the features and benefits, but the quality of the change that we're spending money so that our life? Let me rephrase that. How do we spend money or how do we have access to a higher quality of life in a way that we're willing to spend money for? And if we can get that across organically, using that as angles and pitches and framing and positioning for our brand with paid media is going to be tremendous. And that's a great way of overcoming trying to line yourself with Simon Sinek's golden circle. Like, I want to be Apple. I don't want to be IBM. Nobody cares that you got the most this or the best that. They care that, like, I'm going to feel great and I'm going to be able to do the things I want to do. And it's a tremendous way of unlocking what your customer base is already responding to. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of trying to force their agenda onto their customers. And the most successful businesses meet their customers with the needs that their customers already have. And I think the third thing is the comment section in your organic social is the most honest and at scale feedback you'll ever get. How many people today at the Whaley said, well, we use post purchase surveys and all this stuff? And look, you're only getting the information of the people after they bought that were interested and stoked enough about your product to give you feedback. So that is I've already given you money and I'm already really excited. That is 1% maybe of the people that ever know your brand exists. Social, organically, the comment section is like the greatest bit of like keyboard warrior insight into who those people are that aren't going to pay for you yet, like that haven't figured out. You haven't figured out like how to get money from them and how to make things work. So you're never going to get on a customer service call where you're going to get that feedback because those people are pissed. People that do the post transaction survey, they're both these two hyperbolic angles of who your customers are. But 95% of the people that actually see what you're advertising, you're never going to speak to if you use those. Whereas the organic social comment section is literally everything that somebody wants to say about you. And obviously, you have to filter it out. But there's no greater insight into how people feel about your business because they're just sitting by themselves in bed or in traffic, giving their honest feedback in a way where they were inspired enough to say something. And if you don't pay attention to the words that people use when it's mildly behind your back, you're never going to get the opportunity to understand why they never bought from you in the first place. And again, a post-purchase survey or customer service is only people that have already given you money. And I don't care about the people that give me money. Yes, I do, but I want to know about the other 99.5% of people that have seen my content. Why didn't you give me money? And organic social is pretty much the only way you're going to figure that out. At least for free.
Right. It's more cost effective. And our jobs as marketers, well, performance-based marketers, managing the media buys, obviously, to reduce waste and spend.
Sure.
So that's a great
Efficiency.
strategy. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I have a scenario. It's not a
Alright.
scenario, it's like a real story.
I love it. I love it. Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. So I was working with a pretty big mental health brand, and their media budget ranges between 8 and 10 million per month. And that's
Love it.
across, that's not just paid.
Sure.
That's also like affiliate, programmatic, also OTT,
Sure.
right? Even out of the home, stuff like that. The issue that I see with them, that I see even with my smaller clients that are managing like maybe 100K, 200K in budget for paid media, they're unable to link their organic efforts and their paid media efforts.
Sure.
It's always like a different team.
Yeah.
And so like my job going into that organization was like, okay, how can I link these efforts together, right? And it's always been a shit show. Be like, oh, we'll schedule a meet like once a week, whatever. But like
Sure.
even as a media buyer now, like I'm offering paid media services, and like as a professional and as someone that owns a business, like I'm terribly afraid of scope creep. And if
Sure.
I even talk on that, like I can give strategy, I can do all that fun stuff. I can even like maybe run it into a program and get like all the top reviews, or like,
Sure.
you know, like I like to see the comment sections in the ads
Yeah.
more so than the organic, actually.
Sure.
I feel like they're more actionable in the sense that like I can see where people, where their gripes with the company.
Absolutely. Yeah. Feedback on your investment. Absolutely.
Exactly, right? I feel like with organic in general, I just have a hard time connecting that too. So
Yeah.
you could you, again, since huge public companies have a hard time doing it,
Sure.
how do you deal with your brands? How do you bridge that? What does that look like tactically?
Yeah. Tactically speaking, first off, I want to understand the reason I want that information is because it's going to make me better at my job.
Right.
Part of my job security and proving my value is ultimately producing more scale and efficiency and upside for the business. So if somebody hires me as a media buyer, day one, I'm inserting myself as the CMO, whether they like it or not. Because it does, my role in that company is not to spend their money at X ROAS. That's nobody's real job. Your real job is to meet their business objective of growth or profit or customer acquisition, etc.
Right.
If you are struggling at meeting those objectives, then that's when you can go to these places and ultimately use that information to better inform your decision making. So it's not that I'm constantly having this feedback loop, but I might very well go and say, all right, I've solved the 10 problems I have in front of me. I've got 3 different directions I want to go in. And this is the resource of information that I can use to better evaluate which choice I want to make. And I will then basically put it on like, this is the info I want. And at that point, the founder, the CEO or whatever, the person that hired me might say, okay, cool, well, this is the person, whatever. And at that point, I can go to that person and I say, look, our job here is to make more money. This is what I need from you to make more money. Do you want to play along? And if they say no, their job is in jeopardy. And if I go to my client and say, I'm not getting customer feedback, I can't work on consumer psychology, I can't make better ads because your organic team won't play, then I'm buying myself a longer runway and I'm installing myself as more important to the client, and we're going to solve that problem. Now, maybe that does give scope creep, but if I've also earned tremendously more inherent value because I'm addressing the direction of the business, that scope creep relates or correlates to more money. And it might not necessarily be me having to do that work, but we're going to find somebody on that team that cares about the bottom line of that business. And we should all be working simpatico. If somebody ultimately says, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and everyone's going to make more money, and they say no, find somebody else. And that's kind of how I solve it. I kind of just like, I'm going to make your job easier and we're making more money. Do you want to play along? If the answer is no, cool. This person's a liability to your bottom line. Go find somebody that cares about you. That's my response to the founder. And if it's the founder, that's a conversation of like, all right, this is just now an option off the table, or I'll do it myself if I need to. But those are general relationships where if that's the pain point that I need to solve, and that's the way that I'm going to solve it, and the client won't give it to me, I'm going to definitely be on the lookout for new work.
I've actually had to dump clients because of that.
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
what I'm
like
saying,
I can't actually do the work if your social sucks so much, or if like probably the biggest one that's just like a qualifier of your customer service. Like I can't run.
Yeah, you can't
I
fix
literally
that.
can't. Like your business operations are fucked.
Yeah. And at that point, like, you have the opportunity of saying, this is a problem. I've got a solution for you. Now, maybe it's just like, yeah, please. And then you're like, great, I'll come back tomorrow with the recommendations. And then you Google, right? Like, you don't have to have the answer. You just say yes and then figure it out. And if you start bringing in those solutions, great. You found somebody else. Now you're making $500 a month because you're whitelisting that person to do the service.
Yeah.
Great. Now you're making commission on all of your clients working with you, and you ad hoc build an agency out of a whole bunch of people that don't even work for you. You're just making money. Or fire the client. Either way, you're improving your status in that situation by standing by your value. And that's sort of the way I've always done things.
I feel like the way that I've well, I agree with that 100%.
Great.
Like if I can't if you're not giving me what I need, I can't do my work, period.
Yeah, exactly.
And then on top of that, it's like it's also on me to qualify. Like it's on me to qualify if this business is ready to even scale.
Yeah.
Like how is the infrastructure? What are your what are your unit economics? Do they make sense even with organic numbers?
Sure.
Are you're gonna be if you're not profitable organically, obviously it's a stupid idea.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that in most use cases, unless you're backed, but.
Right, unless you have like funding.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
then, like I'm working with a brand that has investors, and I think they received like 10 million in funding.
Sure.
And like, I was hired by the investor.
Yeah, I think there's a golden rule.
And they're like, no, I want efficiency.
I think there's a golden rule that if the only thing missing from your business to make it successful is marketing, you need to stop that business immediately. Marketing is never the thing missing from a business being successful. Marketing is the fuel to the fire. It's like, all I need to do is go on Shark Tank and they're going to give me money. No, they're not going to set their money on fire because you can't run a business.
Right.
And that's sort of the way I look at it. Like, if you need me, I'm not even going to play the game because like that is extraordinarily unhealthy and you're going to be out of business. I'm not going to stress myself out so that I can bleed you dry faster so that I'm to blame when you fail. Like, I'll just take the next sales call. Or I can tell you that, and then 6 months later, a year later, when everything goes up in flames and you got the next good idea, the one person that was honest with you when everybody else was lying to you, trying to take your money, is the person you're going to call when you're ready to make an opportunity for yourself.
Yeah, I've had people come back.
And it's just like, yeah, reputation matters.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all about do good work, let your work speak for you, and reputation. And I say this, if your ad agency or your service industry, whatever it happens to be, requires a sales team to grow, that means you're not doing good enough work.
So I like how you said that. That 30 minutes that I was preparing, right? You said something that 30 minutes that I was listening, you said something that really stood out because I say it, and I think you probably say it in the same way. Everyone asks me all the time, like, oh, how do you grow as a marketer? Like, how do you grow your business? How do you do X, Y, and Z? And I'm just like, you do good work. Like, I did good work off of an agency. And I told this to Miguel, like, that was my first client. This was like 7, 8 years ago. No, maybe 7 years ago. And I did really good work for that client. I gave him my all. Like, I was heavily invested in that business. I wasn't even talking about advertising at that point. I was talking about all the holes in all the other areas.
Sure.
All of my strategy calls, right? I left the agency and the client found me. Obviously, I'm I have morals and values. So I asked the business owner, the agency owner, is that okay? And I'm friends with him. And he was like, yeah, it's okay. You're not gonna get it.
Yeah.
you're gonna fail. But I support that, and they're still a client to this day. So fuck you. They're my best client so far.
I love it.
Just doing good work. And it's kind of sad in this industry, I think. Just doing good work is the differentiating factor as a marketer, as a performance marketer.
Yeah.
In general, like.
Yeah, I think a
that's
huge
kinda
red
sad.
flag is people talk about their sales team has a close rate of X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, great. So you don't have an inbound.
That's always been like a hesitation with me.
Like,
I don't want to hire people have told me, oh, why do you get appointment setters and hire a closer? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, the only reason you should do that is because you have so many inbound things, it's actually eating up all of your time. And I've been at the place where like I was spending 15, 20, 30 hours a week taking like inbound sales calls, like referrals from people.
It's a good
And at
problem.
that point, yeah, at that point, I got folks that I had taught and trained that knew how I worked. And I basically said, hey, you handle all of this stuff and I'll treat you as an affiliate. And you just make yourself as much money as possible. And then as long as I can handle the scaled workload, now I have somebody else entrepreneurially going out there and earning all of the money they can. And now I got 25 hours of my week back and more money in my pocket. I got a nice check today from somebody that did that exact thing, and it's great. And everybody wins.
Yeah.
You know, the client gets to work with a person that they really want to work with. The team member that I have gets to go out there and work hard and earn real good money. And I get to see the fruits of my labor in a way that doesn't cost me time or resources. And that allows me to build more and work on the business so that I can continue to grow it. And that should be every business owner's objective. Whether you're a service business, an agency, you're selling soaps, candles, you know, anything in the world, like the number one way you're going to succeed is by setting up a machine that doesn't require you so that you can make that machine have more opportunity.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you basically built yourself a day job, and as soon as you are sick, take a vacation, or want to retire, you're out of money immediately. And like, that's terrifying.
That's boring.
Yeah. I will say this, like, I think there's something in the media buyer, in the agency world, that's inherently entrepreneurial. The good media buyers, the good marketers are inherently entrepreneurial. And there's a difference between an entrepreneur mindset and an employee mindset. And the ad agencies or service providers in any field where their priority is to be a good employee, they're never as good as the employees whose primary objective is to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I tell people, like, the number one way of keeping an ad buyer in your agency is to pay them more every quarter or know that they're going to leave you, because it's a caged animal.
Yeah.
And they will earn it and you have to expect it. Otherwise, you're just effectively setting yourself up for failure. And that goes the same, like, in the restaurant industry, like anything in the world that's service-based. If you're good, you're going to get enough clients on your own. You're going to get enough opportunity on your own. You're going to do something more. You're going to grow outside of, you know, the skin that you're in to something bigger and better. You're, you know, getting bigger and bigger shells, or you're outgrowing whatever the analogy needs to be, right? Or you're punching the clock and waiting to collect a check, and that's fine. It's just a personality type.
Yeah.
And we all good entrepreneurs want to have good employees, and the good employees, they don't want to set everything up, just want someone to give them a job. It's very simpatico. But I think the best marketers are inherently entrepreneurial business owners themselves. They just don't have everything built out yet.
Right. I think I mean, I found that it's like more of a growth mindset.
Sure.
Right. You're constantly trying to improve. You're very aggressive. You're very ambitious and competitive with yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I found. Or someone that's like, I think the difference between good marketers and kind of mediocre ones is the curiosity and how courageous they are to follow that curiosity.
Sure.
Right. Because some might be inherently curious, but they're too much in that employee mindset that they have to follow guidelines, they have to follow rules. Meanwhile, I'm in an agency and I'm breaking every rule possible, because I don't think that's actually, if I'm really listening to the client, if I'm really listening to their goals, no, I'm going to break that rule.
Yeah, I was a terrible employee at every agency. I never worked at a single agency for more than 9 months.
That's crazy.
Until I got poached away to build D2C brands, because they wanted the wild person that knew everything that they were doing. And it's funny, I don't think it's just ad agency stuff. Like, a great analogy is like a cook, right? You get you're sweeping up or whatever, you get the line cook job and you work your way up the thing. The person that's really good is ultimately going to be chef level, maybe open their own restaurant, maybe not, but you're going to rise up to your level of merit. Now whereas if you're an employee, you're going to rise to your level of incompetence, and eventually you're going to be a liability at some level. But that's the difference between corporate America and being an entrepreneur. And I think there are plenty of roles in the ad world for corporate America types. And those are all the evil international conglomerate ad agencies that all good marketers probably spent at least a few months working at. Yeah. And you learn. And I always say, I spent 9 months as a supervisor at Omnicom, and it was like boot camp. After 9 months, I knew everything. Like, it's like I survived, I came back, and now I'm better than everybody. And that was 2013. And ever since then, it's been pushing the envelope as much as possible. But yeah, I was like, without permission, just running case studies and like publishing them and sending them out to Facebook and to all the other employees. I was saving clients hundreds of thousands of dollars by delivering stuff, not realizing that like if you're making a 20% commission on $1 million ad buy that takes an employee 45 minutes to set up, and then they save you 200 grand. If I do that 4 or 5 times a week, I'm costing my employer roughly $1 million. And they're paying me 75 grand to basically work 4 hours. And everything else is writing reports so that the person that hired the agency looks good to their boss, and nobody's doing anything of any value.
How do you feel about payment structures for agencies? Because I go back and forth. So a company that I'm working with now is a premium Sephora brand, and they're working with a really big agency that rhymes with Poot Ix.
Sure. Okay.
And I saw their payment structure because I go into this too much details. I won't. I saw.
I've seen the payment structure of a lot of agencies.
Okay,
Yes,
so
yes.
it's similar, right? In the sense that they charge 15% per
Full-time equivalent, or
no, 15% per like account. So like,
Okay.
say if you're spending, like 100K on Google, 100K on Meta, 100K
Gotcha.
on TikTok, 15% each,
Sure.
plus the bottom line baseline of 5,000,
Got it.
not including creatives,
Sure.
right? So I think that's like pure robbery. I
Sure.
think that's crazy. But it's like, I understand from their perspective is, they have so much overhead fees.
Sure.
They have so many more resources than someone like me. But I mean, at the end of the day, are they really using those resources? Because I'm having a great time using Motion and Varos and
Sure.
Atlas and shit like that. And it's a fraction of whatever they're doing with all of their data analytics team. And I literally 1 month in did a way better job. But the thing is, like, I think the payment structure for agencies is off. And I go back and forth on this myself. Like, is it better a set management fee plus a little bit of incentive?
Sure.
Because I know if you have an employee, I mean, I work with someone in full time, but they're technically a freelancer. And I know the best way, because I know how I work, incentives.
Yeah.
You do something good, I get a cut, you get a cut.
Sure.
Like, here's a baseline, but like if you win, I win, client wins, we
Yeah.
all win, right? So it's the same thing with working with a client. Like, if they have some kind of, I mean, I don't know if the management fee is more cost effective for them, like a set management fee between a specific spend, a certain percent of spend,
Right.
or like a ROAS.
Yeah, I think so. There's 3 ways that I see a lot of agency deals get done. One is commission on ad spend with the management fee. I think that inherently.
Wait, sorry. When you
Yeah.
say commission, like 10% of ad spend, right?
Sure.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So where I was at, it was 20% commission, and I was spending $1 million a day. I was making 75,000, and I was a supervisor of like 5 international, like, 10-figure brands, like massive, like international companies. And it was my first day job ever. They realized they made a mistake when they hired me, like day 2, and it took them 9 months to fire me. The point of that is that business model. Now, I do want to specify that we're talking performance media. Like, it could be branding agencies, or where you're doing like over the top television, or like all that stuff might be very different. But let's talk about money in, money out. Like, we're trying to be profitable with our ad spend, incremental lift to the business at large. When you do a commission on ad spend, that inherently in the DNA of the deal is, I'm going to try to get a larger ad spend every time we talk, which means I have to prove my value above and beyond that. But that doesn't necessarily, that gets us into, how am I proving my value? Ultimately, that comes down to the conversation of attribution. Of the pie, I take credit for larger and larger pieces. And because of that, I should get more and more money. The problem is, if the pie itself doesn't get any bigger, there's only so much credit you can take for everybody's work until somebody gets wise to the fact you're not really making the pie bigger at all. And then we have this huge issue of multi-touch attribution, and then, like, well, it was an email, that was a thing, and then they try to do fractional things and all of this modeled stuff, and it's a huge mess.
Yeah, it's a shit show.
Yeah, so the problem with that is it inherently sets up the relationship to be, how do I try to extract as much ad spend from you? Otherwise, you're ultimately like a flat line item. And because you're not at growth, I'm not interested in investing good resources in you because there's a law of diminishing returns of what I'm going to get. As the manager of that agency, I have no interest in giving you good employees because my good employees should go to the clients where that money, that ad spend is going to keep going up. So that means either I'm going to be able to prove there's some value where that ad spend goes up, or you as my client are going to get degrading qualities of support until you leave. And that's just baked into it.
And it's usually the latter.
Yeah, like 99% of the time it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe 92% or whatever. I don't know the math. So then the second version of it is flat fee with like some like revenue sharing deal, which is good. I think that makes more sense because there is sort of this version of simpatico design into that. Like, if your business grows, we grow with you. My problem with that is you will then get into extremely aggressive conversations of why did the company grow? And if you, as the performance marketing agency, say, this is what we need to do to grow the business, and the business says, we're not going to do that. At some point, you as the business owner, as the agency, you're going to start saying, cool, I'm not, here's your new account manager. And it's the underpaid, undertrained person that's like, being massively overworked. And you're going to get this like 24-year-old kid instead of our all-star team. Hey, they've trained and get this huge sales pitch of why you're now getting the like really cheap employee that doesn't care and maybe wants to do this with their life in 6 months.
That used to be me.
And that's everybody. Like that's nobody comes into the industry just like, this is my entire life. Like not nobody, but very few people are like coming out of college, willing to work 50, 60 hours a week for $40,000, $50,000 with almost zero training, and are the reason that a 7 or 8 figure business is successful, and decide this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. Like that is such a just all the things that have to occur for that to exist.
I have so many questions about that one. Like,
Yeah,
does that make a psychopath? Like, what is that? But
yeah. So the point is, like, that's just not a thing, right? So ultimately, that's a relationship that is built on depreciating value. Either I'm going to increase at some point, you're going to stop paying me more money. And then at that point, I'm going to stop giving you as good a service because somebody else is my next growth opportunity. So there's still this timeline to it. That runway is usually longer than in the first case, but still at some point, the business is probably growing because it's a good business. And it has very little to do with what the ad agency is doing.
Good product market fit. Yeah.
Yeah, good product market fit. You came in 9 months into it, and if you had done everything wrong, you're still going to triple in 24 months. Great. This is the agency that was attached to us. Doesn't mean they're any good. 50% of the people I see bragging about their, like, at least 50% of the people that say they're really good at marketing landed a solid client that doesn't need them. That's a huge problem. And then third fit, I would say that I see most common, and there's obviously many other deals, but the third most common deal that I see is something where it is a full-time equivalency deal. So basically saying how much work, and this is how bigger agencies do stuff. And sometimes they'll attach smaller, really small and really big agencies will do this. Well, let's say this is how much work over the next year or 2 years your account is going to take. It's 120 hours a week. That is equivalent to 3 full-time employees. We're going to charge you that 3 full-time employees plus X on top of that. And that's how we're going to structure the deal.
That seems so hard to measure.
It's incredibly difficult to measure, and it 100% will happen. And here's the problem. If that brand grows, like I was running Nissan, I had a team of 2. By the end of that 2-year contract, the team was 5, but there was no more money. So just everybody worked 2.5 times as much. And then the contract got renegotiated and we immediately brought on 3 people. The FTE, full-time equivalency workload was 5, not actually 5 people. You're not hiring to fill that need. And I was managing CBS, and when I first started, it was $50 a month to do sweeps week for like Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. By the launch of the next season, it was $1 million daily like show launches. So May, like sweeps week, and then by like August, September show launch, it was $1 million daily budgets for like multiple shows. Like in 1 week, it'd be like $10-20 million spent, right?
Way too stressful. Like, what KPIs are you measuring? Like,
I mean, that's a whole other thing. But the point is, like, the creep on that contract, where it's a 2-year deal. Now, mind you, it's reach and frequency campaign, so it was 1 half-an-hour job. Now it's 9 half-an-hour jobs that I have to do over the course of a week. But like the point is, there you can't really plan for that. But I do see small agencies do that, and I think in that way it's okay because you can kind of BS the workload. You can say, all right, this is one person's full-time job, and really it's 4 hours, and you're just basically baking in the creep. What I will say, the thing that I favor, which I feel like what would I do, and what I teach people to do in the MBA program, in disruptor school, how I teach deals, is first client's $1,000, second client's $1,250, third client's $1,500. When your deck is full, you go back to that first client and say, hey, look, my fee is now raised. They either say kick rocks or okay. And if they say kick rocks, clearly that means you weren't good enough anyway. Take that $1,000 person off your list and go land that $2,500 person who's the next person on your list. You're constantly charging the next person more. And if you can't get anybody to land on that deal, that's fine because you have this graduated level of doing stuff. And also every 3 to 6 months, raise your price.
3 to 6 months.
Well, if you're paying me $1,000 to run your ads, 90 days later, 180 days later, I'm like, hey, it's now $1,200. If you balk at that, clearly I've done no good work. And really, me working on your account is the reason I'm not landing the $2,000 person. And we're both wasting each other's time. So if I can say my scope of work is 30 hours a week, I'm going to load up to 35, and I'm going to be working really hard on either firing my bottom end client or I'm raising up. What that means is you're constantly just making more money, more money, more money. And on those deals, it's a flat fee. No matter what, it's a flat fee because you're going to be paying me more on a regular basis. If we do good work, you're going to have scope creep, and that's built into the contract. And if you balk, like, hey, we're not going to pay you an extra $500 this month. But like, really? $500 a month is what the difference between me working for you or not. Great, I failed, and I'm going to use the time. I have 9 other people paying me more money, and I'm going to use the time I was working on your stuff to go land the person that's paying me more than anybody else. And in that way,
Opportunity cost is what
it's the opportunity cost. And in that way, every client knows exactly what they're doing. My relationship with that client is built on me being able to say, I'm going to charge you 10% more, 5% more, and you being like, great. And if you're not stoked that I'm only charging you $200 more, $500 more, then that's an impact. That speaks a lot to what the work that I've done, or who you are as a client. And you're only doing that to the bottom 2, 3 clients. The other 3, 4, 5, 10 clients you have that have agreed to $2,500, $3,000. Like if you're landing a client for $3,000, you got somebody else paying you $1,000 a month, you're gonna go back to me like, hey, my new rate's $1,500. And they say no, you're like, all right, cool, I got somebody else to work for you. What do you care? And the next person you land is $3,500. You're gonna make that up times 2. And if you can't get them, you've already elevated your bottom line by so much. And that's where it really kind of fits. And you're only escalating the bottom people. You're raising the floor.
That's also insinuating that you have a steady income of leads coming in. That
if you're not doing good work, then you're not going to have that problem.
I disagree. I think you could do excellent work and be very hidden, and no one knows exactly who you are.
Yeah,
I see that a lot, and me included. But like, I just see that in general. I see people that do really good work. No one knows who they are.
Sure.
Right. Because they don't know how.
They might be really good employees, but not good entrepreneurs. They can execute really well, but they can't necessarily treat themselves as a business.
Yeah.
And in that person, it's like, that's your responsibility.
They don't know how to market themselves.
Yeah.
They don't know how to ask for things.
Yeah. And there are classes for that. There's help you can get. And if you can't do it yourself, find a business partner. Like if you're that successful that all that stuff is coming in and making it work, invest in yourself because it's the greatest ROI investment you're going to be able to make.
Yeah.
Or play the victim card of like, nothing's going to work and I'm not willing to change it.
Yeah.
So it's my fault that it's not working out.
Join Disruptors. What is it? Disruptor School?
Disruptor School. Yeah, that's that.
Go to the Triple L Whaley's.
There you go.
Follow Charley. Join Disruptor School.
That's the TLDR of this conversation.
That's the blueprint right there.
I like it.
I like that a lot. What I really like, actually, I love that your approach with teaching, because I mean I have a very similar approach, and I think that not enough people talk about it because they're so technical marketers.
Sure.
They're always like, here's the type of UGC that you should have in
your
account. It's
very
subjective
technical
boring.
stuff.
Yeah. And to me it's very boring, and it disregards the bigger picture of growing the actual business. I think the quote you said, it's like, it's one thing touching revenue or managing spend versus growing the business.
Sure.
Those are two different types of marketers.
Yeah.
So I think with your approach, I see you as a business consultant,
Yes.
a fractional CMO
Yeah.
that leverages Meta as a tool to
Yeah.
scale.
That is absolutely right.
But if we can visualize this, it's like you have the signature service of Meta, but like everything else you're talking about organic, you're talking about CRO, you're talking about unit economics, you're
Yeah.
talking about things, overhead costs related to
Sure.
the business to like a mastery extent, which I think is fucking dope, honestly.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So I say all of that to not only gas you up, but also
I love it. You can talk about that all you want.
but I have a question for
Okay.
you. So do you think, I feel like I'm insinuating with the question. Do you think that that is the main difference between great marketers and average performance marketers? The fact that you're looking at the business as a whole and you're really looking at it as a business owner, an entrepreneur, as an investor. Like,
Sure.
like I would assume, because I see this, like if I'm trying to bring on a client or a prospect rather, I want to see their P&Ls. Like,
Yeah.
I want to understand. I'm looking at it as like a Shark Tank investor.
Sure.
And I used to work with Damon John, so I know his process.
Gotcha.
So I literally see it like
I love the Shark Tank analogies because everybody's watched the show. They've never once said, "What's your ROAS?"
No, they've never talked about ROAS.
Neither on any episode of Dragon's Den, by the way. International and domestic
Dragon's
never
Den is
come up
OG.
once.
That's OG. So much respect right now. But yeah, like I'm looking at it in a bigger picture to see like if we have all the pieces in place, and if not, maybe this service, paid media, is not for you, and maybe
Sure.
you want to hire me as a consultant.
Yeah.
Right. So I do you think that that's the main difference between like even agencies where they put like a junior media buyer or like a mediocre team, whatever, do you think that that is the main difference between okay performance marketers and amazing performance marketers, or is there so much more to that?
I think it's interesting that you put it that way. I agree with the supposition. However, my internal framing of it is dramatically different. And I love hearing you say it. My internal framing of it is some people get given a budget and they try to maximize the efficiency of that budget. If you give me a budget, my first question is, why isn't it more? My budget is 50K. Great. Why isn't it 60? Why isn't it 100? When was that rose CBS from 50K to $1 million? My report wasn't, here's what you get for 50,000. My report was, this is what you get for 200. Page 2, this is what you would have got for 100. Page 3, this is everything you lost. How much money you didn't make. All the opportunity you missed because you only gave me $50,000. How much more money do you want to lose next month? I'm ultimately motivated by why isn't the daily budget higher? What is wrong in the business? And over a decade of doing that, I figured out thousands of things that could be wrong in the business as to why you're not letting me spend more money tomorrow. So it is, while yes, I'm trying to grow a business, it's also just like, why can't I put a zero? Why is this number this small? No matter what it is, if it's $1 million, why isn't it 2? Whatever that is, solving that problem fixes basically everything.
The problem with that, which I completely agree, right? But as a service provider, if you're not like a consultant, like I feel like I can come in as a consultant and say like, here's what you need to do. I'm auditing the entire business from
Sure.
end to end, right? But if you're a service provider and you are offering Facebook ads, Google ads, creative strategy, right?
Sure.
There's only so much that you have access to and
Yeah.
they're expecting from you. So I think that in theory, that's all accurate. And I feel like that is the best way that I can perform the best, highest quality of work. Unfortunately, we're not given all of that.
Sure.
And I would love to say, fuck you to that prospect. However, if all the pieces align, they're going to be a great prospect and I can actually do some damage. It just so happens that I can't do as much damage in a positive way. Like I can take it far, but I mean, like if I had access to all that, I'd go.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. And to that point, like,
Then it becomes like, it's no longer advertising services,
Yeah.
right? It's like, what do you call that? Like
Yeah.
fractional CMO?
yeah, like I said, as soon as you hire me to do your Facebook ads, I'm your CMO. Like I'm installing myself in that role because ultimately my focus in a very selfish way is to get more ad spend. So, and that's just like maybe it's ego, whatever it is. I just want to spend more money.
Yeah.
Great. That's my singular motivation. I might not be able to do everything on day one, and I probably have no idea what's going on. But over time, if I can do more of the same but better than the last person, and then I can go in there and basically say, hey, look, I remember my deal structure is I'm going to raise your cost on a regular basis. I have to justify that cost. Like, I don't want you to balk at $500. I think I can, like, if we lock in this thing, we could go $1,000 more a day. $100 more a day. What do we need to fix so that I can do better at my job? And some people will say, that's not my job to do. And those are great employees. I think an entrepreneurial mindset, or at least the way I look at it is, I'm not going to let some hierarchy get in the way of me doing a better job. And my ultimate job is to grow that business. Because that's what you're ultimately hired to do. I think a lot of people think the job of a Facebook marketer or of any performance marketer is spend X money at X ROAS. And I've gotten arguments, plenty of people on Twitter, big agency owners, small people, were like, no, my job is 100% to spend as much money as I can at a 3X. But my argument is that doesn't mean the business moves forward.
Right, I agree.
And if my ultimate deal structure is I'm going to raise my rates on you on a consistent basis, then the only way I'm going to be able to justify that after, like, I've had some people that I've worked with for like 3-4 years. And like what they pay me now versus what they paid me initially is like multiples, right? And whenever I'm like, hey, it's that time of year again or whatever, they're like, okay. And it's because ultimately I figured out what's broken. Like I could say, in an operational sense, I can't spend any more. The CPA, the road, whatever it is, I just can't fix it. So I'm either I choose to be a victim and do nothing about it, or I can say, well, if we can improve the second purchase rate or the LTV on this client, I could spend $10 more per customer and I could increase the budget by 25%. And so it behooves me, in the interest of self-preservation and money in my pocket, to ultimately point that out. And over years and years of pointing that out and basically being like, well, nobody's going to address that, fine, I'll do it. Or having those incredibly uncomfortable conversations with people way smarter than me when I was dead wrong for weeks and months on end, which is where, I've learned. Then ultimately you kind of figure out what that little edge is. That means a $39 CPA was too much because if my target was 35, now I can afford 42, so I'm gonna spend 10% more. And instead of being worried about, I can't get this account where it needs to be, I'm gonna get fired, I can say, I'm gonna fix the business so that where it needs, so that what is allowable, we're actually doing so much better than that I have to pay more. I have to spend more because it's actually a liability to not keep me on. It's a liability to not let me spend more money. And when you make that relationship, those people, anything you ask money-wise, you can't go from 2,000 to $1 million a month or something, but like I said, if I were to charge you an extra $500 a month every 3 months, no one's gonna balk at that.
I think that's how you retain clients, right?
Yeah.
Because you're constantly pushing the needle and there's like the back and forth between scope creep versus like doing a good job.
Yeah.
And that's where I personally don't care, because at the end of the day, I will make more money sacrificing scope creep right now.
Yeah.
I will make more money down the line because you'll make more money.
Sure. And if I can
So I'll
have
take
fewer,
that hit.
yeah, and I think ultimately if I can have fewer clients or make more money per client, I work less and
That's
make
my
more money.
goal, yeah. Yeah.
How do you go from 10 clients to 2 or 3? Charge them 4 times as much. Like, you want to make $100,000? Don't try to line up 20 $500 a month clients. Get like 3 people to pay you $3,000. Boom, you're making 6 figures. And anybody that's working in an ad agency for 9 months can easily manage 3 accounts for $3,000. Or stay in your corporate job until you figure that out. That's my opinion. Obviously,
Obviously I agree. But I
through
think
the
there's
prism of my
different personality types.
Sure.
Like, safety and like that to me is boring, but I totally understand that.
and that's what I think ultimately getting back to the good media buyer. What's a good media buyer, a good strategist, a good growth partner versus an employee that's going to do their job? I don't want an employee that's going to do their job. I want somebody where when I pay them, their job role is basically make me need to give you more money. Everybody on my team, with the exception of one person who's like a good friend of mine, has been with me from day one, is the kind of person that's like, awesome, I know if I do good work, all that means is there's more work to come. And it's 100% the truth, because if they do more work, I'm getting more money, I've got more opportunity. And so my job is literally just to set these team players up to be entrepreneurial in that sense. And then that's justifying what I'm doing, which goes into being an entrepreneur instead of a media buyer. But like I said, any good media buyer with enough dirt in their face will ultimately figure out how to make that work, because you're going to be sick and tired of working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and getting emails at 9 o'clock on a Friday night and being asked to jump at 3 o'clock in the morning and all this other stuff because you've been in the game a year.
Yeah, I work a lot less than what I did. But then again, the impact of what I do is just way higher than when I started. I think
everybody else
you
is
got to
smart.
bite the bullet.
Yeah.
I think it's a rite of passage.
It's paying your dues.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you go home before the sun goes down and you're working at an ad agency, you better be management. Like, and then eventually if that becomes a problem for your lifestyle and you want to like enjoy life and all these other things, get your own clients.
Yeah.
And if you're any good, that'll happen. And if your biggest issue is I'm great, but I can't land clients, figure it out or find somebody to do it. And maybe that's where the appointment center is great, because maybe that's just not what you're good at. You know what? That's fine. But if you know that and can identify it, you'll be able to find somebody to do that role for you.
Yeah.
Or somebody else is doing that and you're kind of the ad hoc person for them. You're sort of a whitelist freelancer charging those companies $3,000 and they're charging their client $5,000 and everybody makes extra money and you get 3 of those and you're making $100,000 a year.
I think it's actually for me, it's the relationships thing.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with people, they've seen the quality of my work.
Yeah.
So they refer to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that for me, I think relationships is
That's
everything.
that qualitative inbound stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Relationships is everything. And then it's a better quality client. The client's great to work with because they've already been qualified.
They pay up front and it's all that fun
Nice.
stuff.
But that all comes from like doing the fucking work at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And going beyond scope. I personally think like you have to go beyond scope creep in the beginning.
Yeah,
to
you
do
just
high quality work.
You got to remember, ultimately, you are hired to make the person that hired you look good to their boss.
This is why I don't think agencies, there's always a cap.
Yeah, well, I think
There's always going to be a cap.
the small agency model that was really popular between 2017 and 2020 that everybody knew
Mhm.
is a dead business model.
Yeah.
Because either those clients are going to be able to do it in-house,
Yep.
or they're big enough that they justify, like, this isn't our skill set, we're going to hire out for the things we're bad at.
Yep.
I hire out for email, I hire out for CRO. There are other people that are excellent at influencer and affiliate, and they'll hire out for Facebook. You know what? Great. And there's a role for that.
Mhm.
But I have a 6-figure business and I hired an agency and I'm on my 5th one in 2 years. Like that's the agency that takes that business is that business is dead and gone.
Yeah.
And you either have to, like, most of those agencies were media buyers that were good. They got more clients than anyone else, so they hired a friend and they hired a friend, and now they're just raking it in, being a team manager and a project manager and doing negotiations on contract and not even in the ad accounts doing anything anymore. And that's totally fine. But that business model of overworking and underpaying people who are poorly trained is basically gone, because at least in Facebook, the platform has become so incredibly simple and easy to use and manage that the job of Facebook media buyer isn't a full-time role. It's a part of the job description of some greater thing. And if I'm spending $1 million a week, $1 million a month, 10,000 a year, it doesn't matter. Like, that's a couple hours max a week. So that's sort of just the way I think that it is. The days of that being a full-time job is over and done with, at least when it comes to Facebook ads.
Right. I think with media buying, that's where people say media buying instead. I think it's really like the creative strategy piece. How are you, like, what kind of value are you providing outside? Like, I always say the best optimizations are outside of the account.
Sure.
And so if that's like your modus operandi, right, as a media buyer, like, you're never going to go extinct, because at the core of who you are a growth consultant, you're a growth strategist, you're a business consultant.
Yeah.
And you're just leveraging, like, you just know Facebook ads.
100%. And you're just saying that's my weapon of choice.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? There are people
And you
that
could switch that one. Like, I'm easily flexible in other stuff.
And I know people that, like, what they're great at is creative strategy. And you could have a monkey banging buttons, but this person's brain is locked in on how to get people interested in what you have to say.
Right.
And there are people that are email, and people that are affiliate, and people that are brand positioning. There's a million of those things. The honest truth is, you can be bad at 9 out of 10 of those things. And if you get one of them where that's your unfair advantage in the marketplace, you're an 8-figure business.
Yeah, I agree. Specializing is the way to go.
Yeah.
To wrap this up, 'cause
Okay.
I see Miguel just pacing her back. What advice would you have to a media buyer who's like 1 to 2 years in, or maybe just getting started in it, who wants to make a lot of money,
Yeah.
not work 50 hours a week
Sure.
eventually, and be great? Like, what advice would you give them?
3 things. Number 1, pick a specialty. Either you are a creative strategist or you are a numbers person.
You can't do both?
Somebody could,
I
but
was
they're
gonna say, I
inherently
disagree. I think you need to do both.
they're inherently worse at both of them. Do you want to be a brain surgeon? Do you want to be a cardiologist? Or do you want to be the person working at the ER? Brain surgeon, cardiologist, work less, make way more money. ER is up at 3 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, just trying to keep people alive. Which do you want to be? Now, you might be a creative that's good at numbers, or somebody that's good at numbers that's good at creative, but that's not your unfair advantage. That's not your specialty.
Yeah.
And you can always hire for the other role.
I was gonna say, I think it's like you have like you're amazing at one and you're good at the other,
Yeah.
and then you hire to be amazing at
Absolutely,
yeah,
like
a partner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like and Dara, Denny, like she's creative all day long.
Go check out Dara Denny.
That's
check out her
true.
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I always refer everyone that like, oh, I want to learn about Google, Facebook ads or whatever. Like, don't pay for a course, just go through it.
Yeah, like and so there's some people that are excellent at that, right? I'm terrible at creative, but give me your numbers and I'll make you a millionaire. Like that's like for me that's easy. But like somebody else is gonna have to handle all of the creative stuff. I mean, I'll do it, but literally somebody with like the mildest ability to understand people and to put things together is gonna be 10 times better than me. And that's fine. So one of the things is specialize. Specialists make more money and work less because their force multiplication impact on a business is extreme. And they can be hired by a business that has one very specific need and make an immediate impact. The second thing I would say for people that are in that space is get clients. I don't care if you have a full-time job, get a client. Like start the process of learning, of failing a dozen sales calls a week. Fill your time. If you don't want to be an employee, if you don't want to work 40 hours a week, if you don't want to do somebody else's job for a fraction of their money and ultimately have no security and be held back, then you have to invest in yourself. So begin to make those mistakes aggressively and fail as often as you can, undercharge and over deliver, and then just charge the next person a little bit more. And before you know it, you'll be making triple on the side than you are at your day job. I've accidentally started agencies at my desk at full-time jobs where I was making twice as much, like 3 times, 4 times. Like it has happened constantly. Because I'm just bored. Like I've watched all of Game of Thrones front to back like twice at my desk because I had nothing else to do at my job. And I just accidentally started agencies.
And it sucks at the same
time. Yeah. So the point is fill that time. The reason I'm stuck at that job making that money is because I'm not investing in myself.
Right.
And I have the choice of being a victim or taking control. And then the third thing I would say is just if you're just starting out, if you're a year or 2 in, ask yourself how much longer you want to have, like come up with a really clear timeline of like how much longer you want to be in your situation. Because understand that it is antithetical to the business model of most ad agencies to realistically promote their internal staff. Like if you're a good media buyer, there's no reason I'm going to put you on account management. If you're really good at your job, maybe you'll get a pay raise every year or 2. Literally put down like, if I'm here in 9 months, if I'm here in 18 months, if I'm here in 2 years, is that okay? And I think that sort of like impending doom, like countdown timer is tremendously motivating. Because so many people say they want to make a change and they find themselves in the same place in 5 years. And if that time comes and goes once or twice, at some point you're going to get sick and tired of that thing happening, or you're going to stop dreaming. You're going to stop planning bigger, and you're going to accept what you have and understand that it's your responsibility and kind of your fault.
Have a good exercise for that. I always say like assign yourself like what is your ideal hourly rate?
Sure.
And then they'll be like $50, and I'm like, okay, triple that.
Yeah.
Like or let's say it's 500 per hour. That's what you want to make.
Sure.
How much are you currently making now, and how much time are you wasting doing all the things? And then like factor the difference, and that's your opportunity cost.
Yeah.
That's how much money you're wasting
Yeah.
right now.
And I think sometimes it's impossible. Like when I was getting paid $10 an hour 10 years ago, 11 years ago to do data entry at ad agencies,
Yeah.
there's no way I would have conceived of like, yeah, it's $1,000 an hour to talk to me.
Is
What?
that really your rate?
Yeah.
That's fucking dope. I thought it was cool that I was at 300.
We'll get you there.
Disruptor school.
Yeah, I mean, and look, disruptor school is 500 a month.
I think it's worth it based on everything you're saying.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you talk to, and not to be whatever, you talk to me for $1,000 an hour, it's probably gonna make a $10,000, $100,000 in your business this year. Is that worth it? Yes. I can't charge what I'm worth. Like, I've helped businesses go from 1 or 2 million to like 50, 100 million run rates in like a year or two.
That's crazy.
I should charge them $5 million. There's no way I'm gonna get paid that.
Yeah.
So like, just understand, I love the idea of saying where you want to go. And my favorite part about whenever I've done that is how hilariously pathetic my dream was when I look back at it 3 years later. Like when I first started, when I first started all this stuff, I was like, I want to make like 35, 40 bucks an hour. I want to be able to pay all my bills. And like, I just want to be able to like, I don't want to be in debt, and I don't want to have to ask my parents for like a blanket for Christmas because I'm cold.
Yeah.
And now, like, you know, I paid for my wedding in cash. I bought a house. Like, I'm not special in any of that stuff. My point is, what my dreams were, my lofty goals became, I hope my worst day is never that bad.
Yeah.
And I think that is not to belittle anybody's dreams. Just know that like that's your opportunity. When you start to put that stuff down and work towards it, is I want to be the manager. Becomes, well, I want to own 2 spots. And if you're never satisfied with where you go, there's also some like terrible, like never ending cycle of never being happy. But ultimately what you're motivating is also going to change. Like, it's not about, I want to make more and more money. It's now I want to spend more and more time with my family. I want to, you know, be like all of that stuff. And now I've got the infrastructure to provide for children and my wife who doesn't need me to provide for anything because she's completely self-sustaining on her own. Like, great. Now what makes me happy has changed.
Yeah.
And that ultimately, I think, is how I would extrapolate out that advice over having done it for like 11, 12 years, how dramatically different those goals have been.
I love that. I would add one thing.
Okay.
Only because you had touched on it. You were saying how like, oh, me 10 years ago, I was so psyched. I kind of just wanted to get $35 an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
I came from literally nothing,
Yeah.
urban housing type shit.
Yeah.
I was super excited. Like one of my goals is just to afford groceries for my family.
I love it. Yeah.
Right. So I'm at a point where I also paid for my wedding. Like I
Yeah.
got to do things on my own that I didn't think, and I'm nothing regarding political. Like it was just nice for me as a woman to be able to
Sure.
as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. You were able to provide for yourself. You didn't need anybody else.
And that was super dope for me.
That's
And
amazing.
also for my family. The reason why I got to that point and why I even want to go even further is because of the people that I surround myself with.
Yeah.
So investing doesn't just mean like investing in disruptor school, which I think is really important because I've invested probably well over 50K in programs and coaches and things
Sure.
like that. Probably even more. For me, I paid media coaching as well, shameless plug. That's what I do. I think it's surrounding yourself. It's not just like paying in the courses. It's investing in the relationships and the people to challenge you.
Sure.
Like remember that example that I gave, like, okay, you know, that's your goal, like 50 an hour, like times it by 5 or
Sure.
whatever the case is. Like having people to challenge your already like your little ceiling glass walls or whatever is so important. Having people that
And finding that
are even
motivation
cooler
from an
than-
external place is incredibly important.
I agree that too, but like if you're seeing like I don't know, sometimes it's hard to, especially coming from where I come from, that doesn't even exist. Right?
Sure,
Like
yeah.
I didn't even know. So like for me to go out of my way to invest, to see other people, to be in different areas, to invest in a business coach that's doing cool shit, whatever the case is. It's just the proximity.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And that's I would say that's like another piece of advice. Like
Yeah.
invest in your network, invest in your relationships.
And I want to say, like, I think that's amazing. Like, I think for what it's worth, most really successful people I know have that chip on their shoulder of something.
I love that. The coolest people are fucked up.
Yeah, like I was a strung out junkie. Like I was an inch from death, and I moved to LA to get sober.
Fuck.
Getting a $10 an hour job was the best thing that ever happened to me, and that was the first job where I was actually paid $10 an hour, and I was 29 years old.
Well, that's crazy.
Um, and the idea of being able to like just pay for food and like cigarettes and gas or whatever at the time, like just not having to rely on stealing and my parents and whoever I can con or whatever to get things done. Like at the end of the day, I'm still that like kind of insecure junkie, just trying to make more things happen. I'm finally getting to the place where like I'm helping so many other people achieve so many more things that now my motivation isn't in that place of insecurity, but to your point about the who you surround yourself with and the ability to provide opportunity for them and then seeing the impact of your work. And I think that that is a great thing to say where you're coming from, because if you find your why, I think we saw this today at the Whaleys.
Yeah.
Certain people's why, you know, they're never going to lose. And just, I think everybody's got like that internal evergreen why. It's just some people don't tap into it or don't feel like maybe they don't take that as motivation, or they take that as what they're going to let hold them down. Sort of that like dark passenger that's like restricting their opportunity. And some people weaponize that. Those people tend to be the other folks to give other people opportunity. And I think that's our role in things now, is to say we've done the dark path on our own. We've made it for ourselves. And now there are other people that are choosing between chasing their dreams and maybe losing their home. You know, like that are worried about food and a job, or like the bright future that they want to have. And I think it is that, like, I legitimately talk to people every week where it is that hyperbolic.
Yes, same.
Yeah. And I think like if you are in that place, know that you're not alone. And
I think that's where the greats come from.
yeah,
What are you trying to say?
yeah, you know, and my motivation is now just like I see somebody else in that spot and it's just like, oh, great. Like we can fix this thing. Like we can do it. And look, I'll get something out of it. I'm gonna sleep well. And maybe I'll get some money, but it's a fraction of the good that's being done.
100%.
And I'm not trying to sound like it's completely altruistic. Believe me, there's like
Disrupt your school.
there is money and there is feel good that comes out of it, but
100%. You believe in what you believe in it.
Yeah.
I think that it's value for value.
And you've seen it happen in your life. And that's really where I'm trying to get to is
yeah.
A woman who came up with government cheese.
Government cheese, you're sleeping on it. It's actually really
I'm
good.
sure, like
I've never found cheese that, and I've been to the bougiest spots, whatever, and nothing tastes as good as government cheese.
There you go.
Maybe that's like a nostalgic, I don't know.
There you go. The point is, you now have the choice. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what this career can do, which is so dope. Like, and just being at the Whaleys, like you see people from all different walks of life, and they're all like fucking dope.
You've got smiles on their face.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Disrupt your school.
There we go. All right. I think that's great.
No, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching. If you stuck around for this long, we're late to the party.
Yeah, but let's go boogie.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we're in Austin. Let's go eat some barbecue. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.